Hello and welcome to Using the Quality Self-Assessment Tool for Continuous Program Quality Improvement. Thank you for joining today's webinar. First, I'll start by going over what we will be discussing today. I will share a little bit about the Network for Youth Success. Then we will talk about the details of the structure of the Quality Self-Assessment, or QSA tool. We will also talk about the quality improvement process and some details to help you utilize that process as you are working with the tool. We will share a resource that includes a year in the process of utilizing the tool in a sample program, and we will have time for questions and answers. Please do enter any questions in the chat box as we go, and we will work to get to every question. This webinar is being recorded and will be shared. So I'd like to start by telling you a little bit about the Network for Youth Success. We were formerly known as After School Works New York and as the New York State After School Network. Those two organizations came together to form one to best serve the field and is now known as the New York State Network for Youth Success. Our mission remains the same: to strengthen the capacity and commitment of communities, programs, and professionals to increase access to high-quality programs and services beyond the traditional classroom. My name is Allie Leidy. I am the Associate Executive Director at the Network for Youth Success. Our network includes 10 regional after-school networks as well as partners in New York City. You can find information about all of those on our website, which I will share with you in just a moment. We also have partnering organizations that work with us in their own communities and statewide. We also include a program for accreditation for after-school providers to have a coach and endorser certify that the program is high quality. Additionally, we offer a credential called the School Age Care Credential for staff members that go through a course and then are viewed to receive that credential, which does meet the school age child care regulations through the Office of Children and Family Services to meet the education requirements for a director. We are also a membership organization. We do have a statewide membership. This offers a discount for the annual conference that we offer, as well as newsletters with funding opportunities. We are also the National After School Association state affiliate for New York, and so signing up for membership with us gets an ambassador membership with the National After School Association. You can sign up for our listservs at our website, networkforyouthsuccess.org/join-listserv. That will get you announcements and updates timely as we go through the year. And we also send a free monthly newsletter with all of the best resources and some updates each month. You can follow us on Twitter at NYSYouthSuccess. Visit our website, again, that's networkforyouthsuccess.org, and you can like us on Facebook at facebook.com/networkforyouthsuccess. So we hope you'll get connected. So today's webinar is focused around the Quality Self-Assessment Tool. As the name implies, this is a self-assessment for programs. And so it's important to start by thinking about why we're self-assessing. We self-assess for many reasons. Number one is that quality matters. This is something that we know about programs. We know that high-quality after-school programs create positive outcomes for youth, and self-assessment is a way to help get to a high-quality program. We also know that high-quality programs operate more smoothly, so I often hear that there's not enough time to do a self-assessment. However, if you do put the time in, and we'll show you some tips on how to do that, then you can get to a higher quality program and have systems and practices in place to help operate more smoothly and make it easier to do your job every day and do it well. Self-assessment also helps program providers understand overall program quality and help identify steps needed for improvement. I will show you the structure of the tool today, but this really gives a sense of program quality across many elements in your program. This is a low-stakes process. We're going to talk next about the difference between self-assessment and formal evaluation. But this is low stakes. And this is something that helps focus on program needs and priorities. So you're really focusing in on those areas that you need to be, but you can also get an overall sense of program quality and make sure that you're keeping an eye on the whole program so that other areas don't slip. So as I mentioned, we want to talk about the difference between this and formal evaluation. The quality self-assessment tool is just that. It's a self-assessment. It provides a structure for dialogues around outcomes and quality. And as you see, as we're going through this webinar today, you will see the structure of the tool. It is meant to be a dialogue. We'll talk about those stakeholders that we can involve in that dialogue to create quality. Doing that also strengthens communication and helps build a collective vision for your program. That helps build buy-in as well. The data gathered throughout this process is used to inform practice and help build capacity and build to a high-quality program. And this self-assessment is often facilitated by program staff or other stakeholders. You may also be participating in formal evaluation of your program. This is something different. That takes a more formal approach to assessing programs to determine outcomes. It uses data gathered for accountability and compliance, and it has higher stakes and less gray areas. This is often facilitated by an external observer. Again, the quality self-assessment tool is a lower stakes process. Your results are not collected, not by the Network for Youth Success, not by any state agencies. They are results that are for you to help inform your practice and make improvements. That is different from formal evaluation. So, the quality self-assessment tool includes 10 essential elements of a quality after-school program. Those 10 elements are listed here. All of them are key components of this tool. You can see that there are some elements that are more observable, things that you would walk into your program or programs and see, things like the environment and climate, what's going on in the actual program day-to-day, things like relationships between staff members, relationships between students and staff members, programming and activities. That's another thing that you would walk in and be able to observe. Some of these other elements might be more on the back end, things that are not as observable. So administration and organization or staffing and professional development might be less observable. But these elements are there to help you assess your program across all of these elements of high quality. There are other important ones on here that I haven't mentioned. I won't go through all of them, but including sustainability, measuring outcomes, looking at all of these different aspects of your program. The whole quality self-assessment tool is available online on our website at networkforyouthsuccess.org/QSA. All of the resources that we go over today will be available, are currently available at that website. You just have to go through different pages. You may also download the user's guide pictured here. That is currently in the process of being updated, so we do recommend that you utilize the online version with additional tools and all of the details on the recommended process that we will discuss today. This is a sample of what one element in the quality self-assessment tool looks like. This is element number 1, environment and climate. The element is what all of the indicators work up to. So what you see listed down the left-hand side are all of the indicators leading to high-quality environment and climate. The first one listed is provides a stimulating, welcoming, and supportive environment for young people. And all of the rest of those listed there are some of the indicators that lead up to that element. You'll also notice that on this survey page, there is a space for performance level 1, 2, 3, and 4. We will discuss what those levels mean, but this is where you would check off to indicate which level your program is currently at. And then the next piece is plan to improve, and this is how you start prioritizing those things that you want to focus on as you're going through the quality self-assessment tool process. Is this indicator in particular something that is urgent and needs to be focused on right now? Is it something that you can get to later this year? Or is it something that you want to come back to down the line and look at next year? That's a way to start prioritizing. The link here is to the part of the website where you would get the element surveys, one of each of these for every element. Again, that's all at the main site, networkforyouthsuccess.org/QSA. As I mentioned, there are 4 performance levels. So we have our starting point, our main piece, which is the element. We have 10 of those. Then we have indicators that are leading up to that element. We rate ourselves on every indicator, either a 1, 2, 3, or 4. A 1 means that we need to address this area and make improvements. A standard is not met. A 2 means that some progress has been made. We are approaching that standard, but we are still not at a high quality level. Number 3 means satisfactory or meets standards. This is the level that we ask programs to strive for to be high quality. That's a level 3. Number 4 means that we are doing very well in this area. We are very high quality, so much so that we can probably help others attain this high quality level in their own program. For every performance level, and I cannot stress this enough, this is one of the key aspects of the tool, there is a detailed example of what a program would look like for each of those performance levels for every indicator. Those are all available at the link listed on this slide, which again is off of the main Quality Self-Assessment Tool website. So we'll have a chance to look more specifically at what that means. But that is the meat of the tool, taking a look so that we aren't guessing what's a 3, what's a 1. We actually have specific examples of what a program would look like at each of those levels. So let's take a closer look. This is the element of programming and activities. It is the 5th element in the tool, and we are going to look at the first indicator together for that 5th element. So the first indicator is provides activities that reflect the mission of the program. So we will start out, before we even look at the examples, to take a moment to think about what that means and looks like in our program. Without looking at the examples, I'm going to give you 30 seconds now to just think about what that means in your program. How does your program demonstrate that activities reflect the mission or not? What examples can you think of? So we're going to take 30 seconds for you to think about that. You can enter things in the chat box if you'd like, or just think about it in your mind, and then we're going to look at those examples. Try to be as specific as you can as you're thinking of examples in your program. Okay. So now that we've thought of some examples, let's take a look at the performance level examples for this indicator. Okay, so here we are. We're still on element 5, programming and activities. Indicator 1 provides activities that reflect the mission of the program. The information that follows is the information you would get when you look at all of the examples for the performance levels. So a number 1, and this would be if we rate our program a number 1, an example would be that activities are selected based on materials, staff members' interests, and space available. So you can see there that they're not reflecting the mission of the program. That's not included in that description. Number 2, or a performance level 2. Activities that reflect the mission are prioritized, but some activities that do not reflect the program mission are offered. So we can see there that we're getting towards reflecting the mission of the program. Some activities are prioritized, but not all of them. Number 3, and this is what we say is meeting the standard. The program mission serves as the foundation for all activities selected. Activity and lesson plans include explanations of how the activity supports the program mission. Okay, so now that is adequately meeting the level of providing activities that reflect the mission of the program. We can go a step further for number 4, and remember that's high, super high quality, enough so that we are able to help others to meet this level of quality. We can provide this examples. Maybe we want to offer some trainings on this in conferences or help other sites in our program. So that says the program mission serves as the foundation for all activities developed and selected. Activity and lesson plans include explanations detailing how the activity supports the program mission. Staff members are encouraged to explain the mission to youth participants and to offer rationale and connectedness of the mission to the program activities. Youth have the opportunity to give feedback on the relationship between the program mission and activities regularly throughout the year. So, as you can see, these are different examples for every performance level. This can be an incredibly helpful tool, not only as we are going through and taking this survey ourselves and asking our other stakeholders to take this self-assessment so that we're all thinking on the same level for every number, but it can also be a tool to help you think about how to make improvements. If my program comes to this level and I think to myself, you know, we didn't think about the mission and how that related to programming and activities. So right now I'd probably rate myself at a level 1, and I want to think, how do I get to the next level? I can read the examples here and say, okay, I need to think about all of the activities that we're selecting and how that relates back to the mission. I need to think about the activity and lesson plans. We need a space on those for explanations. And then we can go a step further and think about how we're working with staff members and youth to understand the mission and the connection to the programming and activities. So that really can be a helpful tool in helping you make the improvements and figure out what the next step is. So that's an example there of the tool. Now that we have an understanding of the tool and that we have 10 elements, we have indicators for each of those elements and performance levels with examples from a 1 to a 4, we're going to talk about the recommended improvement process in which we will utilize this tool. Okay, so this is the cycle of improvement. This would look very familiar for many different exercises, and quality improvement processes are very similar. So here we start by assessing the program. So that's where we take that survey. We can decide, and we'll talk about different opportunities, but we'll decide which parts of the program we want to look at. We'll take that survey and click 1 to 4 for each of those different indicators to get a sense of where we are. That's collecting data about the program and where we are now. Once we've done that, we need to create an improvement plan, and we might need to prioritize which parts of the program we want to work on first. So the improvement plan is developed based off of the collected data and what you've prioritized, and it's a step-by-step plan to create improvement in that specific area. We do have an example tool that I'm going to share that will help you do that effectively. The next step is pretty obvious. It's implementing the improvement plan, and that is clearly a crucial part of this process. We cannot create a plan and put it in a drawer. It will not happen. Quality improvement doesn't happen on its own. We do have to actually implement the plan, and we're going to talk about some strategies to help you with that too. The next piece is assessing the program again, and here we would use the self-assessment method. You can use that same tool to survey again and find out if your plan helped make quality improvement as intended. Oftentimes that will be the case, and you'll see that you're now at that high quality level that you were aiming for. Sometimes we'll find that what we thought would make improvement didn't make improvement in the way that we expected, and therefore we may need to adjust our plan. So that's the next step, adjust to meet any remaining needs based off of the data that you've collected. Then we start up again. This is a cycle. It is a circle as well, because we are never done with this process. It should be embedded into the everyday work that you're doing in your program. Quality is changing all the time. We have different factors that would address this. You know, we don't have the same kids every day, every year. We don't have the same staff every day, every year. So these things are always changing, and it's important to keep an eye on quality all the time by going through this cycle. There are some key people that would be involved in this process. The first person is the self-assessment leader. That is the person that's taking charge of this quality self-assessment process. That might be you, or it might be someone else in your organization that you can share this with. The self-assessment leader should always take the quality self-assessment first. So they want to go through, and I would recommend doing it on all 10 elements. Go through, observe the program as you need to, so that you're really looking at what you see for all of those observable pieces. Go back and look in the back office for what you need to be able to accurately assess the program on those back office pieces too. You may need to ask questions of others. It's important to do that first, because you'll then be asking other stakeholders to do that, and you want to make sure that you thought about each of those things yourself. You don't want to have people asking questions about parts of your program that you are not familiar with. You want to make sure that you understand what they will be wanting to know about the program. So, in collaboration with other staff and with stakeholders, the self-assessment leader is the one who determines who's going to be engaged in this process, as well as how and when it will take place. And we'll talk about some different options there. Who's going to facilitate discussions, and that's what's coming up next. How the data and findings will be compiled and shared. And sharing back is very important. Whenever we're asking someone to do this self-assessment with us, we want to make sure to report back to them. And they help to ensure that the self-assessment process leads to planning and to program improvement. So they're helping us move through that cycle of improvement that we just looked at. This role is often taken on by site directors. However, many others can also take on this role. Sometimes program directors take this on, sometimes staff members that are not at the site director level take this on. We do recommend that this not be your formal evaluator if you are engaged in a formal evaluation process. That is because, as we stated at the beginning, this is a self-assessment, not a formal evaluation, and we want to make sure that this remains a low-stakes process that's really helping you to improve. So, think now about who would be your self-assessment leader. Is that you? Is that someone else in your program? We are recording this webinar, therefore you can share it with them, and they can learn all of this too. The next person is the facilitator. This individual helps facilitate focus group discussions. So, a focus group discussion is when we would bring together the stakeholders that we want to get the information from about the self-assessment. So we want them all to individually take the self-assessment, either on one element or on multiple elements, and give us their feedback so that we're not just using our own idea about how our program is doing. That's how we start building the communication, the collective vision, the buy-in that we talked about as one of these benefits. We bring them together to discuss the results and see if we can come to consensus or agreement on where the program is currently on each level, each indicator, what the current performance level would be. So in that focus group, we need someone to facilitate the discussion. That person could be the self-assessment leader. It does not have to be a different person. But some programs do choose to engage an external facilitator to lead this process because they have a neutral voice in discussions. The facilitator's job is to engage all stakeholders and create an environment that is safe, comfortable, and empowering, because we want to get the best information, the most accurate information that we can from this process. A good facilitator provides opportunities for everyone there to contribute ideas and suggestions. They actively listen and connect ideas and themes as they emerge. They are prepared to answer questions about policies and procedures. So this person would need to also read through the tool, at least the part that they're discussing, before the discussion, and then ask the questions that they don't know the answers to. If it's not the program director or the site director, if we're engaging someone externally, they might have questions. And if they don't know the answer during the focus group, they just need to know how to get the answer. We don't want discussions to stop because we don't know the answer to a question that we need to answer to move forward. This person also needs to avoid personalizing what's shared in the process. This is a reason why sometimes site directors choose not to do this themselves, or staff members, because they've personally developed what's going on in the program, and they feel very strongly about the processes that are in place, and it's hard for them to step back. That may or may not be the case. It's just important to think about as you're deciding who will take on this role. Can they avoid personalizing what's shared? Additionally, can they remain non-judgmental for whoever is providing their feedback about the program? They also help bring consensus and closure to the discussions. So they're helping to wrap it all up, decide for each indicator the performance level, and then figure out how we are going to prioritize. So thinking about all of that, you should think about who would be your facilitator for these focus group discussions. So as we are implementing this, we have multiple options of how we can do it. One of the things to think about is the breadth. As we mentioned, there are 10 elements. Each element has multiple indicators. It might seem a little overwhelming, but some programs do choose to do all 10 elements at once. They would survey, the self-assessment leader would take the survey. They would include all stakeholders taking the survey on each of the elements that's relevant to them. So maybe staff members are taking all of them. Maybe family members are self-assessing on parent, family, and community engagement, and thinking about programming and activities and environment and climate. Maybe our students are also providing feedback on programming and activities and relationships and environment and climate. It depends on our program, but we'd be looking at all 10 at once. And then we would have a focus group discussion around all 10 or around those relevant to the stakeholders that are there. I'll say here again, you don't have to include every stakeholder in every element. If they don't know, if they don't have the information to take the self-assessment, they couldn't get that by coming in to observe the program, then it may not be effective to try to include them in the conversation. Things like measuring outcomes and evaluation, they might not know, but you also do want to think, is there something they could provide? Do they have a particular set of skill set or connections in the community that would be useful? Then you could include them in the discussion, help them learn about where your program is and what your challenges are, and then involve them in the improvement plan. So it's important to be strategic about who you're including. So back to breadth. We can start with looking at all 10 elements at once. That provides a great overall view of program quality, and you cover all of the elements faster. So you really get a sense of how your program's doing. One of the cons for this is that you can't go as in-depth with each element. You can't spend a whole lot of time in a focus group discussion talking about every element and indicator as much as you would if you did less, just because of timing. You also may have competing priorities on your action plan. It may be more difficult to decide what you want to work on first. But again, there are some pros. Another option for breadth is looking at one element each week or each month. A lot of programs will do this in conjunction with their weekly staff meetings or monthly parent nights, and start a new element, get that focus group discussion in and survey, and then put together their action plan and implement it during the time in between. One of the pros here is that we give focus to every element, so we are only focusing on one at a time. But a con is that there are competing priorities on action plans. That is because it is often difficult to make all of the improvements in only 1 week or 1 month on your action plan. So at the point where we would be starting the next element, we would still need to be implementing the action plan or improvement plan that was created for the prior element. So we'd have multiple things happening at once. Another option that programs will choose is to work on one element until all improvements are complete. So they'll just pick one. The pros for that is they get a really in-depth treatment of the element. They're focusing on the improvements to be made, and participants become familiar with the whole process. And by process, I mean that cycle of improvement, because they get to go through it all at once. The con for this is that it takes longer to complete all elements. Going through an entire improvement process, depending on your element and where you are starting, could take a couple of weeks, could take a couple of months, or could take an entire year. So it really depends on the types of improvements that need to be made and where your starting place is. So this could definitely take longer to get to all elements. Oftentimes, the self-assessment leader will take the survey for all 10 elements to get a sense of where the quality is, and then also ask some of the staff members to do that, or to do a few of them, and then have a discussion about which one or two they want to start with. Sometimes programs decide to start with an element that they know they're probably really high quality in already, because they would get to go through that whole process, get familiar with it, but not have intense improvements to be made. Sometimes they will take that and then say the one that they are at the lowest quality and they have some urgent improvements to be made is the element that they want to start with first. And so they'll really make those targeted improvements in the area of need first. So there are many different options here. Timing. That's something else to consider as we're going through this. You can start the self-assessment at the beginning of the year. That's referring to the beginning of the school year or the general after-school year. And that gives you a whole year of time to make improvements. One of the cons to that is that the students might be new, staff members might be new, so as they're self-assessing, they might not have a whole lot of data to go on. But we do have the whole year to make improvements. The middle of the year, so we're closer to the beginning of the year at this point, but when we move to the middle of the program year, we have half a year's worth of data to look at as we're self-assessing, and then we still have another half of the year to make those improvements. We can also start at the end of the year. Programs often think this is not a good time, but it definitely, depending on your program, you can start at the end of the year. You would be self-assessing on the entire previous year. You would have a lot of data to go on. And then you will have some time, if you have a break before a summer program or a break for the entire summer, to really think about your improvement plan, put that together, and have things to implement just as soon as the program starts. It's important to consider for each of these options when you're selecting how you want to do it, the improvement process, knowing that that takes time, right? We can't go through that immediately. This isn't something that we can do, have a focus group meeting, and then walk out and think that we've made a ton of quality improvement already. This takes time to go through the process. Staff turnover. If you are a program that has high staff turnover, especially at the end of the school year, let's say, so we have staff members that maybe are AmeriCorps members, maybe they're college students, and we know that they'll stay with us for a program year, but they may not be there next year, then starting the self-assessment at the end of the year might not be the best time for you. That's because you want to include the staff members that will be making the improvements in this process, so that they feel buy-in and know why they are making the improvements that are on the plan. So that would be an example of how staff turnover might impact when you start your self-assessment. So with that example, we would really want to start closer to the beginning of the year thinking about turnover. Other program commitments and priorities. You may have a big family event. You may have a big fundraiser. There are other commitments that your program has that are potentially going to be taking up your time. And so you don't want to schedule the meat of the improvement work at the same time when you know that you aren't going to have the time to do it. So really take a look at your calendar, think about your schedule before you start this process. Stakeholders. So we've mentioned some of these already. So there are multiple different types of stakeholders. If you have funding through the 21st Century Community Learning Centers and you have an external evaluator, then you are required to include your external evaluator in your focus group meetings. If you do not have 21st Century funding, that is not a requirement. However, external evaluators can be included in the process. Depending on your relationship with them, you do want to make sure that as best as possible, you are keeping this a low-stakes process. Youth participants. One of the elements of this is youth participation and engagement. So that's something that as you're going through the tool, you will be self-assessing on, and it will show you that you should be including your youth participants in this type of work. Who better to give you feedback on the programming and activities that you offer and how they feel in the program and how engaged they are than the youth themselves. So we definitely recommend, as applicable, including youth participants. Program staff. We've mentioned that multiple times. They should definitely be included in this process. Oftentimes, they are the ones that are going to be helping to make improvements and have to implement changes. So we certainly want their voice included in these discussions as well. Parents, guardians, and family members also should have great feedback for you on several of the areas of your program, and they can help share information that you might not know about things that they know that their kids really enjoy or things that they see when they come into your program. And they might actually be able to help you make some improvements based off of their own skill sets and expertise. School administrators, whether you are based in a school or if you have students that are coming from a particular school, they might be appropriate people to incorporate into your self-assessment process to get their feedback. One of the elements is linkages between school day and after school, and so they can certainly help you make improvements in that area. And oftentimes programs find that doing this process with school administrators, teachers, principals helps build buy-in, because those folks then have a better understanding of the in-depth nature in which your program is looking at quality, and they want to work more strongly with you in partnership around your program. So it's a great way to build relationships with folks as well. And partner organizations. If you work with any vendors or any other partners in your program, they would have feedback on parts of your program too. Anyone else that's involved with your program, you might have businesses that work with you, you might have board members that are helpful and you want them to be looking at quality and thinking about this with you. You might have funders as well. It's important to really be thoughtful about who's going to have that great feedback, who can help you make these improvements, but also be thoughtful of the information that you're sharing. If you go through yourself and say, you know, my program's not doing very well in this area, I really don't want my board members to be in on this level, I want them to hear about the improvements once we've made them, then you don't have to include them in that particular discussion. The same might be for funders, but if they can be the ones that are helping you get to that next level, certainly include them. Thoughtfully include them in every discussion, and again, you do not have to include every stakeholder in every element's discussion. Just think about which ones they would have information on. You can survey your stakeholders in many different ways. One of which is the paper quality self-assessment tool. That's the one that we looked at earlier with the element, the indicators down the left side, and then the 1 through 4 for the performance level, as well as the area to indicate your plan to improve. And that is available in 8 different languages on our website. And you would want to also share the information with the performance level examples for the stakeholders so that they are able to know exactly what a 1, 2, 3, and 4 look like. We also have survey spreadsheets that are available on our website, and I'm going to share the link for that later, but these are Excel spreadsheets that you can utilize if you have computer access for the folks that you want to include. There is one survey spreadsheet that helps, it looks basically the same as the paper tool. It allows each stakeholder to put in who they are, so if they're a staff member, if they're a parent, if they're a school administrator, and then rate the program, and that includes embedded in it all of those performance level examples. And then there's a compilation spreadsheet where the facilitator can take all that information and get charts and graphs to help them with their discussion. A lot of programs also choose to use a modified version for use. They'll take these indicators and write questions and then do happy and sad faces and neutral faces. For older students, they'll ask questions and let them write in answers, and then sometimes they'll do it as a group discussion instead of a paper survey. All of those are possible. Think about what works best for you, what works best for your stakeholders, and how you're going to get back the best, honest information. That's what we want. Coming to consensus. So as I mentioned, we have the facilitator for focus groups, and those discussions are of survey results. We recommend when possible to have the stakeholders take the survey and turn in their survey before the actual focus group meeting. That way you already have a good idea of what to talk about and don't have to spend time on that. We do know that that's not always possible, and sometimes that has to happen at the beginning of the program, and then there has to be some time compiling answers. But ideally, we would have those survey results back before discussion. Then we want to come to agreement. So we don't say, okay, I have 5 3s and 5 1s, so we'll average that and we're a 2. That's not the way the tool is structured. We then would want to say, okay, why do some of us think this is a 3? Why do some of us think this is a 1? And what are we really? Are a 1? Are we a 2? Are we a 3? So it's important to come to agreement there. And then we decide what we want to prioritize. What should we work on first for improvement? So here is a small example of what the survey, spreadsheets look like. So this is a chart that would show you, this is element number 5. And it shows the different results. So on some of these indicators, everyone was in agreement. So everyone that put them in picked the same performance level. And then we can tell that we had some disagreement on some of these as well. So we're going to focus on number 1, which provides activities that reflect the mission of the program, that same one that we talked about earlier. So here on the top graph, we see that we had 3 parents that answered this as a level 1. On the bottom, on the right side, we see that this is for frontline staff, and we had 2 staff surveyed. One of them said we were at a level 2, and one said we were at a level 3. So we didn't have a whole lot of agreement or consensus on the first survey. Therefore, the facilitator would want to have that discussion with the group. Okay, is there something that the parents don't know? Do they know the mission of the program? Do they know what's written on your program activity documents, if it includes how it's related to the mission or not? So why is it that they think that it's a 1? Then you would go back to your staff and say, what do you know that makes you think this is at a level 2, and what does this other staff member know that makes them think it's at a level 3? And this might not be the same if we have multiple staff members writing their own curriculum and coming up with it themselves. Maybe some staff members are going back to the mission and some of them aren't. So then we need to say, okay, we aren't consistently at a 3, so how do we raise everyone up to that level? So we would come to consensus there once we have all of the information. So these spreadsheets can be a really helpful tool. So this is our action plan template. It is available at the link on this site, and it has an example that is filled in. So you can see what it would look like when you actually use it. There are 2 versions of this as well. So this is the inventory. So if we're doing multiple elements, we would list our organization or site, the date that we have our focus group discussion, who was there and included in this, and then we'll list for each program element, if that's programming activities, which quality indicator we're talking about, the performance levels, and you could list all of the performance levels. So we had 3 that listed it as a 1, 1 at a 2, 1 at a 3, and then we came to consensus on a level 2 or a level 3. Then we would list our improvement steps and strategies, the person that is responsible for making the improvements, and that should be a specific name, and everyone whose name is on this should be included in the discussions. We don't want any surprises. Then we'll list our timeline for improvement. Is that going to be done this year, next year, right now? And we'll get more specifics in that. It's going to be most helpful if you put a specific date that you want to finish this by on here. Then we would put our resources needed. You know, in order to make our improvement step, do we need additional supplies and materials? Do we need some professional development for staff members? What do we need to do that? If you look at the next version of this action plan template, it lets you get a little bit more specific, and that's again at the link, and we are sharing this PowerPoint as well as this recording of the presentation so that you can access that, and all of these are at networkforsuccess.org/QSA. If you were to look at the second one, you would see that you can get even more specific. So for one specific goal, what steps we are going to have would be broken down very specifically, say what day we're going to start, what day we're going to complete the step by, and it even has a section for where you can put the check-in dates. So that time that self-assessment leader is going to go back to that person responsible and see how they're doing on the progress. So it really helps them. The recommendation I'd make for this is to take a look at both. Take a look at the examples that are provided in terms of how a program might fill this out. And as you're doing this yourself with your stakeholders, once you have this, make sure that you, if you're the self-assessment leader, and everyone whose name is listed as person responsible goes into their calendar and puts in every date that's on the timeline. That way, you'll get a reminder, you need to do your check-in, okay. You'll get a reminder when you're starting, you'll get a reminder when you're finishing. So really schedule this out and make sure that you're using this tool. Okay. We recommend that the goals that you put forth for this are SMART goals. Those are goals that are specific, measurable, achievable, results-focused, and time-bound. and there is a template for that available on our website. So I wanted to give an example here to show why it's important to use SMART goals. This first option of a goal says to offer more project-based activities that promote creativity. That is not written as a SMART goal. It is not specific. We can't really measure how much more we're offering. We don't know if we've met that goal. We don't really know why we're doing it or when we're doing it by. Option B, to promote participant creativity by offering at least 2 project-based activities per club per semester by January 1st. I hope that you can see that this one is written in the SMART goal format, and that if you were to be given a goal, either option A or option B, that option B would be much more easy for you to actually implement because it is specific. You know what you're being measured on, you know what your results are supposed to be, and you are bound by that time, January 1st, and hopefully that's something that's achievable in your program. So here are a few tips for creating accountability. You want to plan collaboratively with everyone who will be responsible for completing these tasks. So everyone whose name is on there as responsible should be included in these discussions. As we just mentioned, break these action plan points down into SMART goals so that you really know what you're achieving and how. Assign all tasks to the appropriate person. Make sure that they have the time to make the improvements. Make sure that they have the skills. Make sure that they have the authority level. So make sure that we're doing that. A lot of people will automatically write their own name down for everything. That is not effective. You don't have time to do it all yourself. Bring other people in. This is supposed to be a collective effort. That's how we get the collective vision and the collective buy-in. So don't just write your name down yourself. Create specific deadlines and check-in points, and I'll put those on your calendar so that you're getting reminders. Assign a leader to oversee improvements and make sure they're doing all those check-in points. And then report results back to stakeholders. So whenever we're including those stakeholders in the discussions, we want to then go back and tell them how the improvements went. So here are a few tools. The main one is our website that we've talked about already, networkforyousuccess.org/QSA. This has links for all the resources, detailed definitions of the performance levels, all of the tools that we've talked about. We have multiple languages, and for every element, there are links to resources that will help you as you're working on improving quality in those areas. The next one are the survey and compilation spreadsheets. We saw an example of how that can be helpful in the process, and this is an example of what that looks like, and this link will take you to those. They help you rate the program on the survey, then collect the responses. You can view the charts. And just to clarify, these are not collected by the Network for You Success or by any state agencies. So these are just for you to use, and they are in Excel. So I wanted to briefly share this calendar. This is a year in the process. I've included the month of October here, but if you go to the link that is included on this slide, then you get the calendar for the entire program year. On this calendar, you get to see how a program might fit the self-assessment work into their everyday work. And this would be something that the self-assessment leader, program, or site director would utilize. So for example, and this is not the first month, the program has already started by training their staff members on the quality self-assessment tool, doing a little orientation for parents to make sure that they know what this is, doing an orientation for students as well. And once they've done that, and they did that in August and September, take a look at that link there, then they're going to start in October, where the quality self-assessment leader completes all 10 elements and observes the program as they need to complete all of those elements. And then the staff members are going to do that as well that week. Things that are not bold are related to the quality self-assessment tool work, and then the things that are bold are things they're doing anyway. So that Friday, they have a teacher in-service day in the school that they're working with, and they ask in advance to be invited to present on the after-school program and then get some teachers to sign up to participate in the focus group. They this program has biweekly staff meetings, and at every staff meeting, the quality self-assessment tool is included on the agenda. That way they make sure to review the results on this one from the self-assessments that they've completed and select a focus element. And on a lot of other staff meetings throughout this calendar, they're really just checking in on progress and making adjustments as they need to. Parent night's already scheduled, that's part of the program, but they want to include the tool here, so they survey on the element and they get some parents involved in the focus group discussions. Here we're also including students, and then we're leading towards what happens in the next month in this calendar, which is a focus group meeting to come to consensus and put together an improvement plan. So we wanted this to be an example for you of really how you could embed this into your everyday work to not make this more work, but make sure that it's really on your mind. So those staff meetings are really a great way to make sure that we're continuing to move forward with this all the time. You'll also see on here that there are board meetings. This is an example from a nonprofit, so every time they have a board meeting, there's a check-in on the progress. They're really looking at how to keep this process moving forward. So now we have time for questions.
Hi, everybody. Hi, this is Timothy. I have some questions that came in via chat and via email. The first is, are you suggesting that the focus group go through the element questions and come to consensus on where the program is? So can you clarify what the focus group is doing?
Yes. The focus group, they start by having each individual included do the self-assessment. So it might be on one element, it might be on multiple, depending on the information that they have themselves, that knowledge. And then we would compile all of those results and figure out how many ones, how many twos, how many threes, and how many fours we have. And then we'll have that discussion as a group to come to consensus. That's what that meeting is for, to really discuss the results. So that's why we recommend getting those surveys in advance so that we don't have to compile them all at the same time and then have the discussion. But you can do that. That has happened certainly many times. But yes, that group would then be coming to consensus together.
Next question. Do most programs do all of the elements? And if not, what's the normal number that a program would evaluate itself on?
So I'll say there's two answers to that question. The first answer is yes, the programs do all of the elements, but they might not do them all at the same time. They might not do them all in the same year either. We certainly recommend doing all of them at some point in time. That is the only way to get an overall view of quality, is to go through that process. But you don't have to do them all at once. I would say a lot of programs currently do try to do all 10 elements at once, and they do find that that is overwhelming. I would really recommend, if you're starting for your very first time, to have the self-assessment leader take the survey, self-assessment on all 10 elements, and then prioritize. Pick 1, 2, or 3 elements that you really want to focus on, and then get your stakeholders involved in that process. Have the staff members, parents, students participate in those 1, 2, or 3 that you've prioritized and move forward from there. But once you've done that, make sure to come back and then do those other 7 at another point in time.
Next question. Will there be a training or a webinar for external evaluators, and what's expected of them?
That is a good question. There are different opportunities for external evaluators. I'm thinking this is specifically related to 21st century. I will say that the requirement for external evaluators as it relates to the quality self-assessment tool is that they be present in the focus group meetings. It is not that they be the facilitator or self-assessment leader, though sometimes they do take that role on, and that's depending on the contracts that they create individually with the grantee. If the external evaluator is through a different agreement that's not related to 21st century, then they actually don't have to be included in the quality self-assessment tool process. Most often, the role that the external evaluator takes would be as the facilitator if they if they include an agreement to participate in this process. And that's just to help move forward the discussion because they do know some about the program, but they have an external view. You would not want, as an external evaluator, to use the self-assessment results in any of the formal evaluations. But the trainings for external evaluators would be through the funding stream if it's for 21st century.
Okay. 3 more questions. Can you provide an example of a modified youth version?
That is a great question, and I will look to see if we can get some of those up in our website. They are not currently, but that would be a helpful resource, I think, and so we will try to get one of those up to share. But it might be something for environment and climate. It might be something like how comfortable do you feel in the program? Do staff members greet you when you come in the door? Things like that, and then you'd put your happy face, middle face, sad face for younger grades, or you could do it for older grades where it's open-ended and they can fill in their answers. So it's just taking those indicators and thinking about what information the students can provide about it. But we'll try to get some of those up on the website.
2 more questions. Is there an online version of the QSA tool?
Yes, there is. Thank you. It is at networkforyouthsuccess.org/QSA. And that's where you would get the paper version, and you can see all of the elements and indicators. For each indicator, if you click on it, it'll expand to show you all of the performance levels, and then you can also download the spreadsheets there. We do not have a version like a SurveyMonkey or something like that where you could just send a link out to have everybody take the survey themselves. So if you're looking for something more like that, I would recommend utilizing the Excel spreadsheets.
Last question. When you mentioned there's going to be an update, when will the updated tool be ready, and should people wait for the update before they start this year?
I would not recommend waiting. A lot of what's in here will stay the same. We are enhancing some of the elements, but we are not taking away what's currently included. So it's in no way to say that what's on here on the tool currently is wrong. I would definitely recommend getting started with it now. We are working to have an updated tool before the end of this school year. But it is a large tool and a long process, so I definitely would recommend that folks get started right away.
That's it for questions. Thank you, Allie.
Wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. I appreciate your time. This slideshow, as well as the recording, will be sent around as soon as they are available. And if you would like to contact me with any questions, I will put my email into the chat box. It is Allie@networkforyouthsuccess.org. And I'll put that in right now. Thank you.